Welcome to Syndicated Nightmares, where each week we take a deep dive into an episode of Freddy's Nightmares based on the Nightmare on Elm Street film series. Hosts Dave and Michelle are joined by Hayden Hall as they discuss episode 18, titled The Art of Death, which aired April 29th, 1989, written by Michael DeLuca and Ken Wiederhorn, and directed by Ken Wiederhorn. Hayden, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
I am doing so well. Thank you so much. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing great. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
All right. So, Hayden, if you would, tell us a bit about yourself.
Oh, yes. Well, I am a lifelong Nightmare on Elm Street fan. Freddy was definitely the cause of many adolescent nightmares. And so I'm very thrilled to be talking about the lesser known anthology series. And about me, I dress like a lady on the side, and you can watch more of that on SusanandDenise.com.
Awesome. So the synopsis for this episode is: a young artist comic is brought to life, and a claustrophobic woman is tormented by her roommate's friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the very few synopses that's like right on target.
Yeah. So the main character's name, at least for this part, the main character's name is Jack, and he's recounting this dream, which I thought it was high school, but then it turns out to be college. But he has this dream where he's walking through school, and he's a cartoonist, and he's carrying his work, and he sees this gorgeous blonde girl. And then it's the dream where you're naked in school. So that's how it starts out with the naked dream.
He wants to show the beautiful girl, I think her name is Joan in this one.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to show Joan his artwork, hoping that like she'll see how great of an artist he is, and she'll be so flattered by his artwork of her that she'll just drop everything for him, and they'll live happily together.
Yeah, and there was this really disturbing line where he talks about, like, he spends half the night drawing pictures of her and the other half holding the pictures in one hand.
Yeah. I thought that line was, it was funny, but, mildly inappropriate, but more funny. So, yeah, that's what he tells his friend about the dream and how much he wants to be with her. And the friend, did we ever learn his name? Pete, okay. So Pete has this underground newspaper that he's writing to like expose all of the college's secrets, and he wants it to be satirical like the New Yorker. So that's his goal.
That conversation, they spent a lot of time focusing on their disdain of the jocks, which it's funny that you mentioned you weren't able to tell if it was high school or college, because I found myself wondering that during that conversation as well. I was like, do college kids really, is there this rival with jocks and artists in college? Like, I didn't think that was a thing.
I totally thought it was high school until there's a scene at the dorms, and it's like, oh, I guess it's college.
Oh, they're not high school.
Yeah, I thought that they were in high school also. So then we get to Jack is in the gym, and he's watching Joan work out. I thought they were in gym class, but apparently they were just all hanging out at the college's physical fitness center. And he sketches Joan while she is working out, and her boyfriend Ron sees it, and he's not very happy that Jack is sketching his girlfriend, so he ends up de-pantsing Jack in front of everyone. Which, again, is that something that happens in college? Because I'm pretty sure at that point that's considered, like, assault, Like, that's just not being in high school.
And it is a bit creepy that he's, constantly watching this girl and drawing pictures of her.
Very much so,
and she hasn't expressed any interest,
Oh, yeah, he's not subtle about it at all. He had a firm stare at her from across the workout room while he was sketching her as a warrior princess.
Yeah, and then he goes back to his dorm room and he draws a cartoon about, so her jock boyfriend is named Ron, and he draws a cartoon about Ron like trying to pump up his crotch and it exploding.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that comic ends up getting into the underground newspaper, and Ron sees it and is not happy about it at all. So Ron and his friends, they find Jack and they like pin him to the ground, and then Ron steps on Jack's hand, And Ron talks about, like, I'm going to break your hand, but I don't think that he actually did break it. He just, like, stepped on it really hard.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of lines about Jack being insecure because he's not strong.
Yeah, he talks about his little puny arms and all that.
Mm-hmm. And then it's Freddy's finger painting.
Freddy's using his own glove as, like, the medium brush to finger paint whatever it is.
Directly after that, yeah, it's when Jack is hanging the poster on his dorm room wall, and it's this beautiful full color poster of his, I guess his creation, his son, the Phantom.
Which, the guy who's playing the Phantom, is that supposed to be his friend from the beginning, Pete?
No, I don't think so.
It isn't? I thought it was Pete this whole time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought he drew the Phantom in Pete's image, and I was like, oh, we need to talk about this because this is some, like, suppressed homosexual desire that he has towards his friend Pete if he's drawing him as, like, this big buff Phantom character.
Oh yeah, it seemed like it was going that way because he had those kind of, like, leather daddy gloves on, and the actor that plays that guy is from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He plays the guy that cuts the tag off the mattresses.
Oh,
so I thought that was kind of cool.
Oh, I was just gonna say when this scene happens, you know, he makes this beautiful drawing, puts it on the wall, then he looks up and the Phantom is missing from the picture, and it's all, like, spooky and mysterious, and I was thinking, like, oh wow, this is so cool, and then the Phantom shows up and he looks like a costume you'd buy for $5 at Rite Aid. It was like this really cheap Halloween costume.
Yeah, and it's kind of like his mask is just like the Phantom of the Opera mask, but instead of it being cut halfway, it goes, like, all down his face.
Yeah.
And so the Phantom tells Jack that basically, if you draw it, I will do it.
Yeah, he had a couple really good one-liners in there that really struck me. He said, "Trust me, I am your child," and "Draw, father, draw." And I laughed a lot during this scene, I've got to say.
Yeah. So then Jack draws a picture of Ron on a treadmill, and he also puts the Phantom in the same picture. And then the Phantom, well, it goes to, you see, like, Ron is being drawn on the treadmill, and then you see Ron on the actual treadmill at the college's fitness center. And the Phantom is also in the picture. So then you see the Phantom is also at the fitness center behind Ron. And Ron gets sucked into the treadmill. So apparently he dies.
Yeah, which I wasn't quite clear on the mechanics of that. Like how you would...
Yeah, I don't think
you could get killed on a treadmill. But yeah. But...
all that remained was just blood and his hair for some reason.
Yeah.
And I liked when he drew the picture of Ron. It was very, I guess, keeping with the homoerotic theme. Like the cartoon he drew of Ron was very flattering of his physique.
So then Jack wakes up and he sees the treadmill cartoon that he drew, but he doesn't remember that he drew it. So then he goes to school with the cartoon in his hand, and it turns out Ron is actually dead by treadmill accident. So that goes back to that whole, if you draw it, the Phantom will do it.
Yeah, then he runs into Joan, and he's like comforting her, and they're having this nice interaction, and then she sees his cartoon of Ron being ripped in half, and she thinks he's a psycho.
Which he kind of is. Like, why are you walking around with that right in front of you? Like, all around campus, just showing it off.
Right.
Well, then he's trying to plead with her, like, no, you don't understand. I drew this before he died. So he's not really making a case for himself. It's kind of the opposite.
And then we get another interaction with the Phantom. Because the Phantom says, now draw Joan and I can help you get her back.
And so Jack takes it upon himself to draw Joan in the shower. And yeah, so then we see Joan at the university taking a shower in, like, the common shower area. And the Phantom is also drawn into the picture. Which I will say that Jack was a bit apprehensive at first drawing her in the shower, but then the Phantom's like, no, it's fine. So, I don't know. Like, not cool, right. Jack.
Right. How does like, if the Phantom was just going to explain Jack's case to her, like, maybe they could have drawn them at a coffee shop or someplace, I don't know, a little bit more public, perhaps. Maybe not a shower.
Mm-hmm. And it was like, how does Jack know what these people are doing when he's drawing them? Like, how did he know that Ron would be on the treadmill at that time?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. So the Phantom is in the shower room with Joan, and he ends up abducting her and putting chains on her inside. Was it like a closet that he put her in?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, she's in this closet, and then we find out she's a bit claustrophobic. So, wrong place to keep her.
And there was some like toxic masculinity bullshit in this this part of it, where he's criticizing her for you didn't return the smiles of people who smiled at you. It was very it was kind of gross.
I remember thinking the same on that scene. He essentially like calls her a tease, and she's like, oh, you're right, now just let me go. Like, no, that I don't like that.
Yeah. So the Phantom says that he's going to take away all of her advantages in life. So he's going to take away like her good looks and her nice personality. And I didn't really understand that, because it's like he just put her in a closet.
I mean, wasn't the whole point of why he was grabbing her to to get her for Jack? Like, how does this help move towards that goal?
Yeah, well,
I watched the episode a couple of times because I needed some clarity. And there's a line, I think in the scene before that's kind of like a throwaway line, or at least I thought. The Phantom says that he's going to show Joan who Jack really is, which I guess we're just supposed to think he's gonna win her over for him somehow.
Yeah. But that's such a good point. Jack wakes up and he sees the drawing of Joan in the shower, but he doesn't remember drawing it. And then he goes to the school to look for her. He ends up going to the same shower room that she was in, but she isn't there.
Yeah, and he runs into like some other girl, and he says, I'm looking for Joan, and she's like, we all are. And
yeah, so apparently she's been missing for a while.
He had it coming. I'm glad that she shoved him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not really a very sympathetic character.
No, not at all. So then Jack, he's all frustrated because he can't find her. So he ends up erasing like the whole drawing, thinking that, if I erase it, then maybe it just, like, wherever she is, she'll just fall out of, and we'll be able to find her again. But the drawing ends up exploding in his hands.
Oh, I thought that effect was cool. It, like, then the drawing sort of turns to sludge, and then a hand reaches out and grabs him and pulls him in.
Which I have to point out that this gave me strong Nightmare 5 vibes. Especially, like, with the comics, and then him being pulled into the comic. Yeah, definitely. And also Nightmare 4 with the physics test, where she like smears the blood and then the hand jumps out of there. Oh yeah,
right. I did. At first I was getting a little Nightmare 2 vibe when the Phantom first appeared, and I was like, okay, that's cool. And yeah, I definitely think they took from a lot of different nightmares in this one, and really made it their own.
Yeah, that's true.
So Hayden, how familiar are you with Freddy's Nightmares, the series? Have you watched most of them before, or
I watched them all years ago, and I've only seen each episode once. I never really went back and visited any of them, and this one must not have stood out to me when I first watched it, but in preparing for today, I ended up watching it 3 times, so I guess it kind of spoke to me.
You poor soul.
Really wanted to absorb it all, because I mean, the first half of the episode, like, Jack is your main character, like, it's all about Jack and
Mm-hmm. I think most of them are like this, where it switches main character halfway through.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the drawing explodes in his hands, and then the Phantom ends up pulling Jack into the comic world, and the Phantom refers to it as his world. But I didn't know if he was gathering that his world was the Phantom's world, or it was Jack's world, since he was the creator of it.
So I wrote in my notes, Phantom represents the darkness in his mind. So my impression was that it's like the dark part of Jack is what that world represents.
Oh, I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, well, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, maybe we are just trapped in his mind. Maybe this is a delusion and he's not actually trapped inside of a comic book somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so earlier when the Phantom told Jack that basically if you draw it, I will do it, I think that was a little manipulation tactic, because it turns out that the Phantom is actually running things.
Yeah, he sort of loses control of his creation.
The Phantom, he's like trying to corner Jack, and they're like walking down this long brick hallway thing, and so Jack draws a hole on the comic that he's holding. He draws a hole in it for where the Phantom is supposed to fall into, which ends up happening because since they are in the comic world, Jack is drawing a hole on the comic, so then it is produced in that world. So the Phantom falls into the hole, and then Jack is able to run away and rescue Joan.
I do. So after his little trick works like a charm, he hears Joan screaming for help, and he runs like a hero to save her. But he looks in the mirror, and oh my gosh, he's dressed like the Phantom.
So diabolical, Freddy's Nightmares.
And then, Joan essentially confronts him and tells him, like, there is no Phantom. It's been you the whole time. Please let me go, Jack. And so apparently she's been aware that it's been Jack playing dress up the entire time, I suppose. Maybe. At least that's what I got from it.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too. There never was any drawing come to life. It was just him killing Ron and kidnapping Joan. Which
I thought that was kind of an interesting twist to it all. But then we find out, so when it's discovered that Jack is actually the Phantom, Jack looks up and he can see like where the ceiling should be and whatever tunnel thing they're in. He sees our world, his world, and so they're still trapped in this comic, and he can see outside that his one friend Pete is like looking for him. And he's like screaming, we're in here. And then we see a newspaper article about a local artist abducting a co-ed. So, so it's very apparent that Jack has been doing this and the whole world now knows, but they're still trapped inside the comic. So where are they?
Right. And if they found the co-ed, I didn't quite understand that.
Yeah.
It wasn't in real time or something.
Yeah, no. I like that they were still trapped in the comic, but it needed to be one or the other. Either they were stuck in the comic and didn't know where, and no one knew about it, or they were no longer trapped in the comic and the whole world knew about him.
Or this is all just happening in Jack's brain, and maybe he's locked up somewhere having this hallucination, maybe? Maybe
nice.
It's a hallucination?
We learn in the second half that Joan really was kidnapped and eventually rescued.
Yeah.
Yes.
The twists and turns.
Yeah, that's basically the end of the first half. I wrote in my notes, is Freddy friends with the Phantom? I don't know why I wrote that, but apparently that was the thought I had at the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, he refers to the Phantom as his buddy.
Okay.
But then stabs the painting.
Okay, so then we get into the second half of the episode.
Yeah. So the second half of the episode begins with Joan in her doctor's office, and she's essentially telling him that she's anxious to get back to her normal life, and he's encouraging her to take it slow because she just suffered a trauma, and he doesn't quite feel that she's ready to be on her own yet because she is still having nightmares about being buried alive. And so eventually he agrees to let her go, but gives her warning signs to be on the lookout for, which is paranoia, hallucinations, migraines, and the lingering sense of dread. Oh, but then he also says, you know what, take these pills, stay in for the weekend and order a pizza, and give me a call if anything happens. And then we get another just random appearance of Freddy saying that I'm okay, you're okay, but our Joni is skating on thin ice.
And then she goes home and her roommate Sherry is throwing her a surprise party.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah. Well, before she leaves to go home to a surprise party, which I had the question, is it a good idea to scare a trauma victim? I don't think that it is. But, so before she gets to her surprise party, she's talking in the hallway with her doctor, and they see a woman is wheeled past them, like on a gurney. And it's just a real quick moment where you see, like, we don't see who the woman is or anything, but yeah, we see one being wheeled past them, and they just continue on with their conversation, and then she goes home to her surprise party.
We don't really see much of the surprise party, though. It's just like the surprise and then cut to after the party.
Right.
Well, apparently Joan didn't appreciate her party.
Right.
Oh.
Maybe she did, yell at them like,
Yeah.
I just had this traumatic experience. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
She's home for the weekend to deal with her claustrophobia and taking these pills, and Sherry is going on a ski trip with her boyfriend.
And they want Joan to come with them, but Joan says no because she's going to have a quiet evening eating pizza, or a quiet weekend eating pizza and taking her meds.
She's scared of this closet because of her claustrophobia, so she goes in to get Sherry's skis for her and just loses her breath just trying to do that.
Yeah, well, the door ends up closing and she kind of gets trapped inside and has like a little mini panic attack inside.
Yes, but that's like after everyone leaves for the ski trip, because first she meets Jamie, the friend.
Cousin Jamie.
Sherry's boyfriend shows up and brings his cousin Jamie.
Oh, that's right.
Who asks her out, and she says no.
Right. Oh, and then she goes back into the closet. The first time she just retrieves the skis and then has a panic attack and opens the window to try and calm down.
Yeah, and then so she's asked out by Jamie. She turns him down. They all leave for the ski trip, and Joan's alone. And she realizes that she left the light on in the closet. So she goes into the closet to turn off the light. But a big gust of wind comes through the open window and closes the door on her and gets stuck.
That was done well, where the walls literally start to close in on her. That was, I liked that.
Yeah,
good.
I loved that.
Yeah, that was good.
And I guess she forces her way out. And she tries calling the doctor and gets his answering machine. And so then she goes into the kitchen to eat a whole chicken.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote in my notes too. Like, after a panic attack, are you so hungry that you need an entire chicken?
And the doctor specifically said pizza.
Oh yeah, so she's not even following that one directive.
Yeah. And then, Jamie comes back and he says he's there because he was going to borrow a book from Sherry and she forgot to give it to him. And then he comes in and starts acting creepy.
Yeah, and asking her questions about her abduction from earlier in the episode.
Yeah, he refuses to leave and demands to know the story, and then tells her to make something for him in the kitchen. Well,
first, so he opens the closet door. And she tells him to leave, and he's getting all touchy-feely and up in her face, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna leave, but I have to go to the bathroom first. So he goes to the bathroom, and she tries to call for help, but he grabs the phone from her. And I kind of get the whole okay, now I have an opportunity to call 911, But how about I have an opportunity to leave the house and then call 911? How about, like, just leave the actual situation instead of just calling 911?
Yeah, she's not trapped there.
So he immediately leaves the room, and she makes the mad dash for the phone, and of course he catches her. And that's when he starts like yanking her around and demands that she cook for him, but he sees the like entire chicken sitting on the counter and disses her chicken and said that he wants something better than that. So then she pulls out another plate of food, and for the life of me, I couldn't tell what it is. It could have been a souffle, it could have been a cheesecake, but whatever it is, he didn't like that either. So that was weird, and she then takes matters into her own hands and smashes a giant bottle of vodka over his head, and then hits him with what appears to be a meat tenderizer.
Yeah, and when you say a giant bottle of vodka, you aren't joking. It was a giant bottle of vodka.
Yeah, I don't think she needed to follow it up with the meat tenderizer, but better safe than sorry, I guess. Jamie falls down to the floor and is lying there and with a face full of blood, really.
Yeah, so Jamie's just totally knocked out on the floor. And Jamie hears a knock on the door.
And yeah, Jamie is back. I thought that was cool. Like she knocks him out, and then there's a knock on the door, and he walks back in, and the body's, it's like the cycling through it again, and the body is missing from the kitchen.
Yeah. And so Jamie number 2, he's there for the same reason. He wants to borrow a textbook from Sherry. And but this Jamie, he's like really nice and concerned about Joan.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously there to like abduct her or something, but at least he's like playing the nice guy routine before he goes to grab her.
And she tries to call the doctor again, but so the first time she got an answering machine, this time she gets an answering service, and she gets all frustrated because she can't reach him.
So, and then knocked out Jamie, he's no longer in the kitchen, so she decides now's a good time to open the refrigerator, and like the food inside is all possessed and starts flying around the kitchen.
Yes. Oh
my gosh, I love that part. The little chicken like went back to the fridge and did a little like dance at her.
Yeah,
he kind of like held place for a second there while it jiggled around. That was
yeah. So after the pieces of chicken do their line dance, there's another knock on the door, and it's Jamie again. So now we have 3 Jamies.
Yes.
But she grabbed a knife this time, so she's got a way to defend herself.
Yeah, that's good. I would have grabbed the chicken because apparently the chicken could do a lot more damage than a knife could.
Yeah. So yeah, Jamie's at the door again, asking for a textbook. Really needs that textbook.
Yeah. So he barges in and she stabs him with the knife, but it turns out it really wasn't Jamie. It's the doctor making a house call.
Oh. Yes.
I know. So he apparently got all of her messages from before, and instead of calling her back, he just immediately comes to her house.
Yes.
He's not a very good doctor.
No. So yeah, so she stabs the doctor, and then she gets knocked out somehow. And when she wakes up, she's like on the sliding table at the morgue, and Jamie and the doctor are like looking over her, and then they like slide her back into the wall. So I don't know, like if she was supposed to think like she was dead or something.
I guess, but except, yeah, I mean, she stabbed him, so I'm not sure why she's dead.
Well, and they did that cool little like transition there where I think like maybe the doctor fell on her and she rolled over, but when she rolled over, she was like laying on a bed of purple silk on that little cart in the morgue.
Oh yeah.
It's just like a weird transition where it's like, is she dreaming? Is this reality?
Well, then, Sherry comes home and she goes to the closet and she finds Joan inside in like this catatonic state of fear, and so apparently all of this was just Joan freaking out inside the closet.
Which makes
Right.
sense. I mean, if she's extremely claustrophobic and locked in a closet for a weekend.
Mm-hmm. So then,
Oh.
then Joan is brought to the psychiatric ward where she's being rolled down the hallway. And as she's being rolled down the hallway, she sees her past self talking to the doctor. So kind of a throwback from the beginning when she's talking to the doctor and that woman is wheeled past them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that part was kind of cool.
Yeah, a little full circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, we hear with the doctor pushing pizza on her again, telling her that it's everything.
Yeah.
Which it does.
Maybe the doctor has like a part-time job delivering pizzas and he gets like a commission on each one that he sells.
I hope so.
Yeah. So that's basically the end of it. Then we have Freddy comes out of a coffin and he talks about being burned alive isn't as bad as being barbecued. That was like his
being buried alive.
Oh, being buried alive. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being buried alive isn't as bad as being barbecued.
I get, but nobody got buried alive, so I'm not really sure why he said that.
Yeah. Maybe in the original script she was supposed to have been buried alive, like they were going to leave her in the morgue wall, whatever that thing is called. And so that would kind of be like being buried alive, kind of. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
And maybe they just changed it. I don't know.
That last line doesn't make sense, but I thought as a whole the episode was pretty coherent. That the first half is resolved that he is really the Phantom, and that the second half it was all her hallucination being locked in the closet. So
yeah.
It definitely has its flaws, but it all came together pretty well.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the worst episode of Freddy's Nightmares.
Yeah, no, I liked it.
Dave, what did you think of the episode?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was one of the better ones. I mean, I didn't like the sort of gross underpinnings of the first half, but I thought it was a pretty solid episode.
Mm-hmm. I liked the first half a lot better than I liked the second half, just because it had a lot of Nightmare 5 elements to me. I wasn't that much taken aback by the gross elements that you talked about. I noticed them when they were in the episode, but I took it as this was the late 80s. This is just how TV was back then.
Right.
But yeah, watching it now, I can see like, oh, this would never pass for airing it now. But yeah, it was all right. I think they could have done a lot better with the second half for it, but all in all, it wasn't that bad of an episode.
I liked the thing with it cycling with Jamie, where Jamie kept showing up, because I feel like a lot of the episodes, sometimes it's just like the person's in a dream and weird things keep happening and there's no real structure to it. Mm-hmm. So I liked that this sort of had that structure of the Groundhog Day thing with Jamie showing up.
Yeah, I like that too. So Hayden, before we go, is there anything more about your show that you would like to tell us about?
Yeah, it's just my boyfriends and I dress up like these unfortunate characters and get into all kinds of trouble. We have some horror aspects, which horror fans may like, lots of practical effects, and some gross out stuff, popping pimples and whatnot. But yeah, I hope there's something for everyone there at Susan and Denise.
Okay. And it's susananddenise.com?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So enter at your own risk.
Okay. Is there any Twitter or Instagram that we can follow?
Oh, yeah. Instagram is obnoxiously long. It's Susan_and_Denise_official. Because, there's so many people out there with Susan and Denise Instagrams. Really had to point out that it's the official one.
Instagram can be a bit annoying with those handles, though. Like the underscores and everything. Yeah.